Hey guys, we're doing a new little series about tinkering with coffee. I am so excited about transforming the humble AeroPress into a cold brew station. Now I'm going to use an empty White Horse Coffee water bottle. There are some items here that we need: a drill to drill a hole in the base of the cap, a hobby knife, a pair of scissors, a compass, a few little tinkering bits. I got this compass from a $2 store and it cost me nothing. So here we go. First step, the lid of the water bottle. I'm gonna use a piece of timber that I found outside just to protect so I don't drill a hole in my bench. And we're gonna drill a little tiny hole. This is a 2mm drill bit. And so we just wanna pierce and put a hole in here so then we get our coffee to drip through nicely. That is it. I'm just gonna remove any excess plastic. Just gonna drill through the other way. So this is the type of hole that we're looking at for the coffee to drip through over time. So I'm gonna replace that back onto the bottle. Screw that nice and tight. And then using a hobby knife, I'm just going to cut carefully just at the base of the bottle. Just going to use a pair of scissors to trim that up so it's nice and pretty. And that is our cold brew ice well. So now what I'm going to do is we are going to cut our filter. So we utilize the base of the AeroPress. We won't need the plunging mechanism, set that aside. So we use the base and get the cap and we'll get a regular filter paper. And we're going to place that in the base. And then we screw that in. So at this point, we're going to load in the coffee. I like to use the AeroPress funnel to load the coffee in. And today I'm brewing with this Rwandan filter coffee. I've brewed with White Night, I've brewed with espresso roast, but today is a filter roast. And contrary to what works with the majority of cold brew or even cold drip, people like to grind extremely coarse using a plunger grind. But I've actually been getting some really nice results by using an espresso grind, and the water does permeate through. But because this is a filter roast, it's kind of capturing that lovely fruit character of the coffee and all the nuance of the coffee, but I'm getting the strength by grinding so fine. So at this point, I need to make another filter to put on the top of the bed of coffee, so then when the water drips on top, it evenly disperses over the bed of coffee and permeates the entire coffee and draws out all of the flavor at the same time rather than just dripping in the center of the bed of coffee. So I get a regular AeroPress filter. I've got my compass and I've set it to roughly 27, 28 centimeters, as you can see there. And just by placing that guy in the center and drawing that around. So using the scissors, we just cut the excess off. So that is the cut AeroPress filter. So as you can see, compared to the original, it's just a little smaller. And that way, it's gonna fit nicely in the AeroPress brewer. It doesn't need to fit so tight and snug, but it does need to be able to pass directly over the coffee and act as like a dispersion block of diffusing the coffee evenly across the coffee. So I'm just going to drop that in. And then at this stage, I'm just gonna level that off again, and we're gonna place that onto the collida wave that I'm using in this instance. So with the jar, you could use a mason jar or even a glass or anything that you have at home. So now we need to weigh in the ice into the dripper that we have made. So putting just a measuring cup on the scale. We can even put the dripper onto the scale, turning that on so it's going to tear immediately. And then we're going to put our ice into the dripper. So we want to get 200 grams worth of ice. So we're at 195, maybe one more cube. So I reckon that is going to be beautiful. So that's 202 grams. And then all we need to do now is just place that onto the AeroPress. In about 5 or 6 hours, we're going to have beautiful, nuanced cold drip coffee. And what I like about this is if you own an AeroPress, you don't need to buy any other brewing devices. So you get creative with what you've got at home, and then you have lovely cold drip coffee. So that recipe, again, was 20 grams of coffee. I've used espresso ground, or espresso roast, excuse me, but today I'm using a filter. When I was using the espresso roast, I was grinding at a plunged setting, but because I'm using the filter, the espresso grind really works really well. So it's heaps fine. It's much finer than the French press grind. And then 200 to a maximum of 220 I found works really well worth of ice, and then it just drips over time, and it takes about 5 hours to do so. So at this point you can see there's just the tiniest little bit of water, little drop starting to form. And I'm going to be really excited to come back tomorrow and taste this coffee and share it with you guys. It's 24 hours later and we're ready to drink our cold drip. So what I'm going to do before we drink is show you guys what actually has happened inside here. So I'm just going to unscrew this, and that is the packed bed of coffee that we've brewed through. So I'm just going to remove that filter paper that we cut, and it looks like that we've permeated and drawn out all of that flavor. So I'm doing some interesting reading about how acids are essentially dissolved with heat, and different acids are retained at colder temperatures, which is why cold brew has a particular taste. So this is just room temperature cold brew that I've left on the table overnight. I'm just going to pour that over a full glass of ice, and we're just going to drink it as is and enjoy. This will cool down almost immediately. Always give it a good solid swirl, and let's see what this beautiful Rwandan cold drip tastes like. It's rich, it's intense, it's actually super caramelly and molasses driven. It's a beautiful, lingering, sweet and toffee-like acidity. I recommend you guys to try brewing cold drip at home. I loved this Rwandan cold drip so much, I'm gonna brew it again. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna jerry-rig 3 of these things together, and I reckon if we sit it on top of this like that, we're gonna be able to brew 3 times the volume or the batch size. So I'm just gonna run off, get some ice, and come back. Now, another thing, because this seems really crazy to me, I'm gonna try out another crazy idea. I've heard that Alan Adler himself, the man who designed the humble AeroPress, uses his paper filters 10 times over. He just rinses them underwater and reuses it. Pretty crazy, I know. And for a little paper filter that costs $6 for 100, 300, it seems crazy. But I'm gonna test it out in this as the top filter paper over the ground coffee, because this is a crazy little experiment. We're gonna polish it off with some further craziness. So here we go. We've got our 600 grams worth of ice cubes. We've got our ground coffee, 60 grams worth. I'm gonna put a regular paper filter into the base of the AeroPress, screw that on. I'm gonna use the funnel to cleanly load the coffee into the AeroPress. Always trying to settle that to make it as flat as possible. This is gonna be super interesting because that bed of coffee is like over an inch thick. And then we're going to be placing in our used paper filter. And then we're gonna load that onto the brewer. Then we're going to load the funnel onto the AeroPress. And then we're going to put our ice over the top. And that is it. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be sipping on a serious amount of Rwandan cold drip coffee.